All right, it's Luminostic. Today we're going to talk about the hermetic axiom, as above, so below. I think this is one of the most important phrases that mysticism from any different school or tradition has generated. And it's a little bit obtuse, so some elucidation and pontification is in order. So do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, share this video with anybody that you think may be interested or that may benefit from it. And so, okay, as above, so below. This, I think, has been expressed in a lot of mystical traditions. I'll just give one example in Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalistic tradition. They say of the Sephirot on the Tree of Life, Keter is at the top, and it's like the light that emanates from God, the creative force. You could think of Keter maybe as Chi or Prana, and Malkut is at the bottom. It's the 10th Sephirot, and it is the foundation. So Keter is in Malkut, Malkut is in Keter, but after another fashion. Is the idea that the divine world is in the material world, and the material world even is in the divine world. And this sort of reflects that as above, so below that we have in Hermeticism. I think also that one of the real values of this as above, so below idea is that the phrase itself can teach. Once the idea is planted in your head and you're kind of like in contemplation of it, it sort of will help you to mine. You can see examples in all sorts of different systems. In fact, I think that there are universal truths while we're on the subject, and I think that the way that you can spot them is that they will apply to any system without fail, except for one of the universal truths is that there is an exception to every rule. This is expressed, for example, in physics. It's said that they'll do, an experiment 1 billion times because they're doing it in such small segments of time that, there's time to perform it so many times. And anyways, every 10 billion times or so, they'll get an anomaly, a different result. So that's an expression of this universal law that there's an exception to every rule. And it's that sort of thing, that all is transient. Anyways, there's a bunch of them, and leave it to your own ingenium to discover what they are. I think that's also important, too, that you don't, like I've said before in some of the other videos, one of the reasons for secrecy in Freemasonry, for example, is that you don't want to interrupt other people's gnosis. So I'm not going to go through and give every example that I can think of to illustrate these things, because I think it's important for people to kind of just, you take the idea and then you see it for yourself, and this is much more benefit than me, outlining all of these different things. And so, as above, so below. I will give a couple of examples of what this actually means. And it's not as simple as saying, like what's, up in the airs, some people don't get this at all. What it's really saying is that everything is reflected in every other system. The universe has a holographic nature. One of the other hermetic principles is that the all is mind, and that the all is in the all. So this idea of, a holographic nature of reality, and it also ties back in with, we know that the mind is holographic even in structure. The all is in the parts. And so that's actually a good example of as above, so below. So a great example of as above, so below that I think I probably encountered in a great book that I would wholeheartedly recommend called The Tao of Physics by Friedrich Capra, where he relates mystical ideas that he feels are reflected in physics. In fact, that whole idea is a huge expression of the as above, so below, which is also, the microcosm, macrocosm. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet. But in that book, he talks about how if we were shrunk so that we were the same size relative to the nucleus of an atom as we are relative to the Earth right now, there would be the same distance between us and the nearest proton as there is, as we are now, between us and the moon. So this idea that everything is kind of a reflection of this original model, the macrocosm, microcosm, that the one is just reflected in all of these different pieces and parts and segments. And of course, these language always fails us when we're talking about, what did Terence McKenna say? It's un-Englishable. So all of these are kind of like the best we can do. They're approximations But I think that, ideas like the microcosm, macrocosm, as above, so below, Keter in Malkut, they are definitely very powerful guides to help us see something of fundamental importance in the universe. And the importance of it is that we need to stop believing that we cannot know what the universe is, where it came from, how to relate to it, why we're relating to it. All of this stuff is not only knowable, it's our birthright. And there are processes that have been designed. There are phrases. There's music. There are all these different gnosis-inducing methods that will allow any person to see for themselves, what the structure of the universe is, what role consciousness plays, to get all of these unanswerable questions answered to the degree that they can be known by people, which is not necessarily absolute, but I think, you can at least get a tremendous amount of circumstantial evidence together. You can compile so many coincidences that the chances that what you're looking at is actually meaningless is very, very slim, It becomes absurd to think that we're not onto something when you can observe these ideas expressed in every single system that you can find to look at. Not only are these things not unknowable, they're a lot of them relatively obvious once you know where to look, how to look, why you're looking, and have gotten rid of your cultural conditioning and cognitive dissonance. And I think this is kind of the antidote to the atom bomb, that we do have access to great mystical truths. Anyone with a little bit of intelligence and common sense can see it for themselves. And we have all these great mystics over the ages that have left us signposts. And, like I said, what I'm offering you here basically is a practice. You look for consistencies within different systems that are not related. For example, Jewish mysticism, the macrocosm, microcosm, the Keter and Malkuth, and then the as above, so below. I'm sure the Buddha had, something to say about all that at some point. I'm just not aware of the particular phrase. So looking for these corollaries, and then, looking at the universe and seeing these things expressed in all of these different systems and all of these different ways, seeing how, the subatomic world is a reflection of the macro world, and and just having an open mind and balancing that with skepticism. And I think you'll find that you'll discover a lot of amazing truths and be able to see them for yourself. This is what the Gnosis is about. This is what the value of the Kabbalion is. And that's what I have to say about As Above, So Below. So do me a favor, hit the like button, share, support us on Patreon. The next video I will conclude my ayahuasca and the star tribes. So we'll get back into plant medicine for a little while. Thanks so much for watching.